Hello all. Thought I'd put a tutorial together with regards to putting a D&D tile or making a D&D tile for tabletop gaming. Just making it up in Blender, printing it out on a 3D printer as well, and showing you the end result as well. It's fairly straightforward, but there are some bits in it that can be quite complex if you don't follow a sort of procedure, if you like. Let's get started and delete the original cube, as everyone does. Um, I need to make another cube for some reason, but we do. So let's go 50 mil, 50 mil, and say around 4 mil in thickness, or Z-axis if you like. Then we go into edit mode, Control R, add two loop cuts, choose the face, alternate E, extrude manifold and drop it down. And that way, the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to try and make a road in the middle, cobbled road, and paving on either side on these sections. So at this stage I would normally subdivide it a number of times and all different bits and pieces. But what I tend to do nowadays, I downloaded the quadremesher 1.3. It seems to do the trick for me. It is a trial version at the first, and then you pay for it afterwards. I'm not quite sure how much it is. I'll leave a link in the description below. But since I've had it, it's a bit of a game changer, to be honest. It's brilliant. So as you can see, all these faces are just basic, and if I was to add a material to it, it'd look something like out of a PlayStation 1 game or something like that. It's just blocky, it's just not right, it doesn't look real at all. So let's remesh it in there and I'll show you exactly what I mean. As you can see here, it individually unwraps or subdivides each face, which is exactly what you need when you're adding new material or texture. While it's selected, once I've done that, what I tend to do is go to UV editing, and I'll go unwrap, and then I'll go smart UV project. And that basically puts everything in the right position for me, ready for adding some texture. So let's go ahead and add a modifier, add a subdivision surface. I normally run at about 3 there. I've got a fairly good PC. Obviously, if you run a lower end PC or a higher end, you go for the higher numbers. On a lower end PC, you know, you maybe drop it to 1 or 2 and get away with it still. So what I need to do then is now add groups. Go back into edit mode. We can now look at this from, if you go to the Z axis or Z view, highlight the middle section, which is going to be our cobbles, and assign that group. And the idea behind this is so you can segregate each part of the object with different materials, which is the result you want really. So let's do that again, but this time let's do the paving side of it. So that's one side done, and that's the other side done. And let's assign another group, which is there. Assign again, remove it, click on assign, and we'll call this paving. There you go. So those two groups have now been created, one for the paving and one for the cobblestones. So with that in mind, now we want to do is go back into modifiers, add modifier, and we need to go to deform, displace, and then new to add a new texture. And you open a texture. These are available online free of charge, most of them. And what you want is a displacement texture. So if we find a good one, it's cobblestones there. Let me look. let's go for displacement. The reason displacement is good for materials and modelling, especially for 3D printing, is the darker sides of the actual image there are the grooves, and the higher ones are sort of like the stones. The whiter the area, the higher the stone, if that makes sense. Wait for that to load. Now if we go back into object mode, you see it's an absolute mess. It's all over the place. You can see the texture, but it's just not good enough. It wouldn't work. It'll give you all sorts of problems. So what we now need to do is go back into one of the displacement modifiers we put in and change local simply to UV. And it still looks awful. And there's a reason for that. What we now need to do is make sure the object's highlighted, hold down Control and press A, and then click Scale. There you go, it goes back into it. Sometimes people miss that, and that can cause all sorts of problems. But as you can see, it still doesn't look great. So what we need to do is change it to the group and change it to cobbles, and hopefully it should just do the middle part. Yeah, there you go. So while we're in this, let's make them a bit more prominent, so the bricks stick up a little bit more. And let's also adjust it by going into the grid pattern here. And let's adjust this in mapping. You can flick the axis so you can change what it looks like. I think that looks better actually. And you can also resize the cobbles themselves. I think that works good. That works really well. So you can see, you've got your stones, they look the nuts really, them. That looks really, really good. So, with that said, now you've got a bit of an issue where you've got these that are blank. So what you need to do is add a modifier again. Same again, displacement. It will go all funny again, and it you start thinking it's gone wrong, but it hasn't. Give it a couple of seconds. So go to new, get a new texture, and let's go for the paving stone. Let's go for that one, displacement. Once again, let's go back to this and add it to group. You see the outside is still not good, but the inside looks great. So again, you need to change the coordinates from local to UV. There you go. You can go on the sides as well if you've got more time. You can actually, make all of these different groups all the way around. But that's basically your tile. You can make anything on that. You can, put a drain on it or something along those lines. I'll tell you what, when you're finished, what you can do is you can add or apply all, and that's your finished article. Just to double check when you're doing a 3D print is to go onto your 3D print in the sidebar here and check it. If you haven't got it, you can download it in the preferences add-on. At the top, edit, preferences, and add-ons there, and you can put in 3D print. I think it's called there somewhere. Can't remember exactly what it's called, but there's one in there that actually allows you to add a separate tab for just 3D checking and editing and stuff like that. Once you've installed that there, it should appear in your sideline there. So what you need to do is make sure your object is selected, then click on solid, and hopefully you should get non-manifold edges 0 and bad contiguous edges 0 as well. If you haven't, and there's a few numbers appeared in each, just click on make manifold, and that will clear all the errors for you. And then you go back into solid again and they should disappear and go back to 0. with that in mind now, what we're going to try and do is delete that existing cube and just be remaining with this retopologized cube. Just right click on it, convert to mesh, just to make sure it is what it is. That's that. And then hopefully we can export this straight to STL. And if you've got multiple items in there, you can click on select only and it'll only export that to STL, that particular model that you click on. If you click selection only, if I leave it blank, it'll export everything out of this. So it doesn't matter so much when there's only one object on it. So it's just let that export, and then let's just minimize, blend up. And then what we need to do is go into Lychee Slicer, or whatever your preferred slicer is. Let this load. And if you don't know already, basically the slicer, all it does is slice your model up, so the 3D printer, or resin printer in my case, understands what it is you're trying to print. So once it loads up, let's add the tiling that we've just created. And as you can see, that is ready for 3D printing. It looks superb on the tile, it really does. I will be doing other tutorials on how to print it and stuff like that. If you print them flat, they don't always come out exactly as you want. So what I tend to do is go for one of these. And if you use the, you can use the magic button. Basically, it does everything for you. I won't do it now, there's too much to go into, but it puts your supports in it, it adjusts it in a certain way so it works for you, and gets ready for printing, to save you messing around with everything. I mean, I could do it myself, to show you very quickly. If I go and auto support, medium, generate automatic supports. And what it'll do is it'll add supports to the actual print, and that should print off quite nicely. But what I would recommend is going back into it, let's delete those supports again, keep moving, and let's auto orientate, because what it will do is it will find the best position for the tile and the best place for it to print out. And then you can add your supports again. And there you go, ready to print. Hopefully this helps someone out. Any questions, just drop something in the comments. Alright, thanks for watching.